Imagine learning that the person you respect most in the world has spent their entire adult life hiding a horrific, unforgivable secret. This is Natsume Soseki's Kokoro, a novel so central to the Japanese identity that it has been required reading in schools for over a century. The title itself is notoriously difficult to translate. Kokoro means heart, but it also encompasses the mind, the spirit, and the entirety of a person's inner emotional world. Soseki conducts an autopsy of the hidden, often contradictory nature of that inner world. The story opens on the coast of Kamakura. Here, an unnamed, enthusiastic university student meets an older man he simply calls Sensei, a Japanese term for teacher or master. Their dynamic is immediately lopsided. The young narrator is eager, seeking mentorship and a meaningful connection. Sensei, by contrast, is fiercely intellectual, but emotionally barricaded behind an impenetrable wall of cynicism. Sensei actively discourages this admiration. He warns the young student that he is entirely unworthy of friendship, let alone reverence. This warning is matched by isolating behaviors. Sensei keeps his own devoted wife at a painful emotional distance. Even stranger, he makes a solitary, unexplained pilgrimage every month to the grave of a friend in Zoshigaya Cemetery. Curious, slightly hushed tone. Sensei is a man intentionally burying himself alive under the weight of an unseen past. After graduation, the narrator leaves Tokyo and returns to his family in the countryside. Back home, he struggles to relate to his biological father, a simple, conventional man who offers little intellectual stimulation. The narrator constantly compares him to the complex gravity of Sensei. But his father is dying, and his physical decline occurs alongside a historical shift, the passing of the Meiji era. Japan is rapidly modernizing, leaving the older, traditional generation behind. The young student finds himself caught in a generational tug-of-war. He is trapped between the dying traditions of his bloodline and the paralyzed modern intellect of his chosen mentor in Tokyo. As his father's condition worsens and the older man falls into a stupor, the household fills with relatives. The tension is suffocating, and familial duty demands the narrator stay by his father's deathbed. Then, the mail arrives. It's a massive, densely written manuscript from Sensei. Reading only the first few lines, the narrator makes a shocking decision. He abandons his dying father, slips out, and boards a train to Tokyo. If you plan to read the novel and want to experience the mystery yourself, pause here, because Sensei's letter contains the devastating truth of his life. The narrator's choice to abandon his home proves that Sensei's secret has become a stronger force than life, death, or blood duty. The third act exists entirely inside this letter. Sensei details his original trauma. As a young man, he was defrauded of his inheritance by his trusted uncle. This betrayal birthed a deep, paranoid distrust. Sensei learned to look at everyone with suspicion. Seeking isolation, the young Sensei moved into a quiet boarding house. There, despite his guarded nature, he slowly fell in love with the landlady's daughter, whom he called Ojosan. Around the same time, Sensei grew worried about his childhood friend, a stoic and intensely principled student named Kei, who was suffering from severe depression. Hoping to help him, Sensei invited Kei to move into the boarding house with them, but the cure backfired. Kei eventually confessed to Sensei that he too had fallen deeply in love with Ojosan. Because Sensei's unresolved trauma had conditioned him to expect betrayal, he couldn't view Kei's honest confession as an act of vulnerability. He only saw a scheming rival trying to steal what was his. Driven by jealousy and fear, Sensei struck first. Behind Kei's back, he secretly approached the landlady and asked for Ojo-san's hand in marriage, securing the engagement before his friend even knew what was happening. When Kei learned of the engagement, the consequence was devastating. He quietly retreated to his room and took his own life. Standing over his friend's body, Sensei realized the horrifying truth. In his desperate attempt to protect himself, he had become the exact same kind of monster as his treacherous uncle. For decades, Sensei lived in self-imposed punishment, alienated from the world and his wife. The final catalyst came years later with the death of Emperor Meiji and the subsequent ritual suicide of General Nogi. Sensei commits suicide to finally absolve his guilt. His massive letter to the young student is his final act, passing down the agonizing knowledge of his life to serve as a living lesson. Soseki never shows us the narrator's reaction. We never find out if he made it back to his dying father. The heavy moral burden of interpreting the Kokoro is handed directly through the page and the screen to us.